Hello, and welcome to In the Roud. Greetings and salutations, dear listeners. My name is Matt Quinn, and this is In the Roud, a folk song podcast. I'll be your host to guide you through the world of traditional folk song as we go through the Roud Index, one song at a time. Each episode will feature two guests, one providing an historical look at the song, while the other will be a singer from the folk music scene to talk about their own version of the song. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Or if you're new to folk songs in general, also welcome. Or if you're a bit unsure as to what the Roud Index actually is, fret no longer. If you go back to the very start of this podcast, as in before Season 1 started, you'll find an introduction episode where Steve Roud explained what the index is and why he started it. We're now ploughing our way through Season 1, and this is Episode 7. We're looking at the song labelled Roud 7, which is The Female Highwayman. Later on, we'll hear from singer Laura Smyth and her version of the song called Cecilia. But for now, let's take an historical look at the song with the creator of the Roud Index himself, Steve Roud. Steve Roud, welcome back to In the Roud.
Hello, thanks
Hello.
for having me back.
That's quite a pleasure. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it? You were 3 and 4, 1, 3 and 4, wasn't it? And here we are at 7.
Here we are at 7 already.
Blimey, only another 45,000 something else to go.
That's right.
Well, I've said to everyone, I'll never get there, but you know, it's about the journey, not the end.
It has been calculated that at one a week, it's going to take you 800 years.
Yes, that's something like that, isn't it? It's 879 years. Yes. So I feasibly could get to about 2000 maybe if I really do this for the rest of my life.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, because 2000, that's what, 5%, just under 5%.
Yeah.
So this is a call out to anyone who will be born in 20 years' time. You're more than welcome to take it up after me.
Yes, you can have a memorial session when I shuffle off, and then somebody else can take over from you. And
yeah, that's right. We'll keep it going.
Yeah.
In 800 years. No. Yes, it's a shout out to any folkies out there who are thinking of having children in 20 years' time. Prime them for to take over In the Roud. Anyway, it's lovely to have you back. Always a pleasure. So here we are, episode 7 of this first season. So this is Roud number 7, which is this excellent song, The Female Highwayman. What's it about? What's the plot? Bring us into the world of the song.
Well, it's pretty much encapsulated, what it says on the tin, as it were, the title, The Female Highwayman. It's about a woman, a young woman presumably, who dresses herself as a highway person, holds up the coach where her sweetheart is traveling, steals his money and his watch at gunpoint. And of course, he doesn't know who she is because she's in disguise, and probably doesn't seem to notice that it's a woman holding up the carriage, but never mind. Anyway, she says to him, "Give us that diamond ring that you're wearing." And he says, "No, I would rather lose my life than give up my diamond ring because that was a present from my sweetheart." So in most of the versions, it then has a line, "She being tender-hearted, just like a dove, she rode away." In other words, she said, "All right then," and rode away. Next morning, she's walking in the garden, and he comes along and he spies his watch hanging from her clothes because, of course, it's not a wristwatch; it's a fob watch or that sort of thing.
Yep.
And he realizes what has gone on, and she says, "Of course, I only did it for to know if you really loved me. It was a test." And in the traditional versions, which we'll talk about in a minute, he then says something like, "You bloody idiot! You might have shot me, or I might have shot you." That's a dangerous thing to do. And she said, "Well, I only did it for to know, if you were a man or no, as it were."
Right. Right.
Anyway, and so they live happily ever after, and they get married, and that's it.
Yeah, there seems to be a thing, doesn't there, in folk songs about testing true
Yeah.
love's constancy, as my hero Gordon Hall put in a song once. That sort of thing. There's a lot of that going on, isn't there?
Oh, there is indeed. Lots of cross-dressing and lots of disguise. Normally, for the testing, it's the man coming back in disguise, from the war.
Yeah, that's the song Claudie Banks and others,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's
It's
yes,
that.
a disguised lover. There's loads of those. Broken token, they're often called because of the
That's right.
token. We'll come on to them, later on as
We will.
this series progresses. This is one of the unusual ones where it's her testing him. Um, those are less common um, for it to be that way around, and that's presumably why it was so popular. In that, it was a slightly different take on the turning up in disguise and testing your lover kind of thing.
Right.
Normally, I mean, we call it the female highwayman because that's the sort of standard title. The
Yes, there are other titles, aren't there? It's normally the name of the woman, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the name of the woman. Um, Sylvia, Cecilia, Sauve, Zilla, various other, oh, even Jenny and Priscilla sometimes. But Sylvia seems to be the first. Um, the earliest version that we got printed in Ireland, Belfast, oddly enough, it's not odd that it's printed in Belfast, but it's odd in that not many songs, sorry, not many versions of this song were collected in Ireland. It wasn't common in Ireland as far as we know, only one or two. But it was printed in Ireland in 1764 on a broadside, and we've got no reason to believe that that's not the original.
And did that have what was the name of that? Was that
That was Sylvia.
Sylvia? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And by the 19th century on broadsides, it's often called Sylvia's Request and William's Denial. So the title unusually gets longer as the years go on rather than gets shorter, as it were. Starts off with just her name.
Yes, that's because normally it's the further back you go, these songs have the more sort of explanatory titles, like
Yeah,
like episode two, we did the young sailor cut down in his prime. Later on, just becomes the unfortunate lad or
yeah,
something. The broadsides tend to have a more matter-of-factly title that explains the
yeah,
song.
indeed, yes. But in this case, it's sort of worked the other way around. But the, um, as we said, the traditional versions normally just have the name of the female in them. Um, and I think Sylvia or Cecilia are the two most common. But because of a version by Pentangle in the 1960s, 70s called Sauve,
So was this a particularly sort of popular, widespread song? How far did its reach?
certainly it was well known in England. A few dozen versions collected from various places. There's 84 entries in my index, but that's not 84 singers, because some people sang them more than once. But certainly, sort of something like 60 versions collected in England. USA and Canada, quite a few, a dozen in each place. But as I said earlier, very few in Ireland or Scotland. It was less popular as far as we know. I can never know for sure, but mostly it was English singers. And and the plot changes very little And I think this is again, going back to what I said at the beginning, that's one of the things people like about they like the story, so there's really no need to change it. There's no need
Oh
to
yes, this is
use.
like the Raggle Taggle Gypsies, and it's basically the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I mean, once you've got a good story, that's what the singers really went for.
sure.
And so, there's no need to add things to it or even subtract. There's nothing to forget, as it were, nothing you can leave out, because it really just tells the straightforward story. Um, in that's probably all that can be said about it from that point of view. Some songs change a lot, others don't. That's all we can say.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the date again? That Belfast
Right, the
broadside?
Belfast printing was 1764,
Right.
but it was printed by all the major printers, especially the London ones like Pitts and Catnack, in the first quarter of the 19th century. And then it stayed in print throughout the 19th century, to the 1880s, 1890s. So it was always around. There was no trouble getting it if you wanted it. Now, oddly enough, there's fewer recordings that are available than usual with these widespread songs. And then for England, there's only four that are readily available, as it were, which I think you're probably planning to play.
Yeah.
There's one by George Dunn, in Staffordshire singer 1971. Paddy Walsh from Plymouth in 1960 was recorded by Cyril Tawney. But the ones that a lot of people know nowadays are by Gordon Hall and his mother, Mabs Hall from Sutton.
Hurrah!
I'm sure they'll be mentioned quite often in your sessions. They both sang a version called Cecilia, and as far as we know, Gordon learnt it from his mum.
That's right. And that's the version that later on in this episode I'll be talking to Laura Smyth about.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that I do when I give evening classes and I give talks is I play a bit of I play a bit of Mabs singing first, and then I play Gordon singing the same song, because it's not very often that we've got recordings of a traditional sing and the person that they learnt it from.
Ah, of course, yes. That is quite rare, isn't it? Yeah.
Is fascinating. Not only because if you see a picture of them, it's wonderful. Mabs was a little old lady at the time she was recorded, wonderful, grandma type of thing. Whereas Gordon was a big fella, a
He was.
big personality and a big singer. I mean, you didn't stand too close to Gordon, and he let rip because he was a powerful singer. But if you listen to the way they sing, leaving aside the fact that she's a little old lady and he's a big man, it's very interesting to listen to the way they decorate the tune, the way they approach the song, and so on. Now, I think you're probably going to play another version by Gordon, and of course, Gordon.
Yes, that's right, because there's another one, another recording of Gordon singing a different version, isn't there?
Yes, and of course that's because Gordon, really unlike the earlier singers, he was a researcher in his own right. He got interested in the songs. He found other versions. He rewrote some. He learned them from books. I mean, it had every perfect right to do so, and they're still traditional in inverted commas. But it's interesting that he will have more than one version of a particular song.
Yeah, normally he just added verses into one song and they became 15 minutes long. But obviously this one he decided just to sing another version.
He also wrote some excellent parodies, like his parody of The Farmer's Boy,
Yeah, there's that and the Constant Lovers. Those are the two main
Yeah,
of culprits or two main offenders, I suppose, is those two, and they are rather glorious.
yeah. But I think we've said before, we'll say it again, he is a Marmite singer.
Oh,
Some people really
absolutely.
can't stand the way he sings, and others love it. Um, but it's worth persevering, even if at the beginning you think, oh, this is a bit over the top, this is a bit weird. It's he is really worth paying attention to and getting used to some of the ways he sort of quirky ways he sang because
Yeah.
his tunes are glorious and they're
It's
always
interesting. Also, there was I don't know whether he just didn't find melodies or something, but there is one melody that the more I listen to his songs, the more that one melody keeps cropping up. It's as if he just, well, I haven't got a melody for this. I'll just use that one, and so
yeah.
it's the melody that I think is most commonly used for Caroline and her young sailor Bold. Turns up in at least three or four other Gordon Hall songs that have nothing to do with Caroline and the young sailor Bold. So
Yeah, but again, that's fully traditional. That's exactly what people did in the old days.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So all hail Gordon Hall. This is in danger of becoming the Gordon Hall Appreciation Society.
Yes,
This
well, we'll
this
have to bring
podcast.
Harry Cox back in
Yes,
sometime soon.
absolutely. Was there a Harry Cox one of this of number
Not that I
seven?
know of. No,
Oh, what a shame.
I'm sure he would have known
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
but as far as we know, he didn't sing it.
Right. Is it? You did warn me before we start recording. This is going to be a short one. Is there anything else to say about anything at all to do with
I
this song?
I don't think. Uh, no, I think this one is relatively straightforward because it hasn't changed a lot over the years. We could give a mention now. We're saying that this is Route 7. Uh, for other podcasts, you've mentioned the child number.
Oh
That's
yes,
important. No
the
child
child ballads.
child ballads. But this one is called a Laws ballad. Laws. Laws. Um, named after a fellow called G. Malcolm Laws, who was an American researcher. And he wrote a book called American Balladry from British Broadsides. So he
Right.
tried to do in the 50s, he tried to do what I now do with the database. He tried to do it in book form. So he published this book on American balladry, classified the songs into sections. So this one is Laws N21. So you'll sometimes see that on CD notes and older books.
Yes,
I'd say,
and sometimes it says Roud something, child something, laws something. They get
yes,
this long list of credits after a song. Yeah.
yeah, that's right, because those are the standard numbers, and if certainly if you go to American sources, they will quote laws numbers quite regularly. Um, and his book, even though it's just a classification of the songs, it is well worth reading. He knew what he was talking about. So
So that's the most common. Is that the most commonly used sort of index system for American? Do you reckon?
yes,
There is a trend now over here in England, certainly, of when you make an album and put the sleeve notes that you do put the Roud number in there, just as a little nod towards some research, So
yeah. Well, it means that you don't have to, you know, have long head notes or end notes. Really, you just have to say, "Here's the number." You go look it up. That's what it's for.
yeah, yeah.
But of course, my index will include all the songs in laws. So there will be a laws number and a round number, and a child number and a round number.
So
Uh,
did this one turn up in child at all, or is this not a child
no,
ballad?
this isn't old enough for a child to take notice of, really. Although it is a ballad, it tells a story. Um, so that's what's useful, why Laws is useful, because he picks up on those ballads like this that child didn't worry about. I mean, we don't know why he didn't want this one, but basically it wasn't, 1764 is too recent.
And how do we look up the laws stuff? Is that are that book or those books in print, or is this like an internet
You can
thing
get
now?
them, I don't know if they're in print actually. You can get them on, second hand. There's two of them, one called American Balladry from British Broadside, and the other one called Native American Ballads.
Okay.
They're readily available secondhand. I don't know if they are reprinted anywhere or online. But
so more yet another thing to go on my list to fill my shelves with eventually.
You should have Laws on the shelf.
Yeah. I'll get there. I've got a growing book collection. Great. Oh right, if that's it, then that's it. We'll finish there. Thanks for coming on and doing that one with us. And I believe that this is your last appearance for this season.
I believe so.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much, and we'll definitely have you in season 2, which will be coming later this year. I'll try and get a second season out before the end of the year, so we'll definitely have you. I've got some people already linked up for season 2, but there'll be spots for you, I'm sure. But for the time being, Steve Roud, thanks very much.
Well, thank you for having me again.
And there we are. That's the historical side of the female highwayman. Huge thanks again to the legend that is Steve Roud. We're now at the halfway point in the episode, so we'll just take a few minutes to listen to some snippets of different versions sung by traditional singers. So what you're going to hear now is a snippet of The Female Highwayman from George Dunn, Sylvia the Female Highwayman from Paddy Walsh, and then 3 versions of Cecilia from Gordon Hall, his mother Mabs Hall, and then back to Gordon again for Gordon Hall's other version.
Shiloh, Shiloh, one day, she dressed herself in man's array, with a sword and pistol by her side, to meet her true love, to meet her true love, away did ride. She met her true love on the plain, stand and deliver, sir, she said. Stand and deliver, sir, she said, or else this moment I will shoot you dead.
Sylvia, 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 one day she dressed herself in men's array, with a loaded pistol down by her side, to rob her true love, to rob her true love, Sylvia did ride. And she rode up to him, and she bade him stand, stand and deliver all the gold you have. Stand and deliver all your golden store, or else this moment your life's no more.
Cecilia on a certain day dressed herself all in man's array, with a brace of fine pistols hung by her side, to meet her true love, to meet her true love, to meet her true love, away David ride. She met him boldly on the plain, stand and deliver, she said, young man, Stand and deliver, young Sir Shimmy David Asai, or else this moment, or else this moment, this very moment, your life I'll lie.
Cecilia, on one certain day, she dressed herself in man's array, with a brace of pistols all by her side, to meet her true love, to meet her true love, to meet her true love away did ride. She met him boldly on the plain. Stand and deliver, she said, young man. Stand and deliver, young man, she say, or else this moment, or else this moment, or this very moment, your life I lay.
Oh, the bold Miss Cecilia, on a fine summer's day, she dressed herself all in man's array, with a brace of fine pistols hung down by her side, to meet with her true love, away she did ride. She met him right boldly out there on the plain. Oh, stand and deliver, she said, young man. Stand and deliver, young sir, she did say, or else in a moment your life I will lay.
And you can find the links to all those tracks and the albums they're from in the episode notes. On to the second half. I spoke with singer Laura Smyth, and we chatted about her history with folk music, all things Gordon Hall, and her thoughts on his version, Cecilia. Well, hello and welcome to In the Roud, Laura Smyth.
Hello there.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, thanks for inviting me to be on your show.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. It was as soon as I saw what song at number 7 was, I thought, right, get Laura on for this one. Because we both have a sort of history with this song, and I think the singer or singers
yes,
we got it from. So
mutual appreciation.
Yeah, so we'll come to that later on in great length, I'm sure. But yeah, so and actually, I don't think we've seen each other since before COVID times. But we
no, I think the last time I saw you was probably Whitby Folk Week,
2019.
Yeah, and I just had my little girl was just born, and she was there, and I think she was probably like about 5 weeks old or something crazy like that, and I think I remember sitting in the spa pavilion, and you were there, and there were other people there, and she vomited and pooed on me simultaneously. So that wasn't a highlight of my folk week.
I mean, it's what we go to folk festivals for, isn't it? It's just a live for those moments.
But I'm surprised you didn't remember it.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that actually. No, but yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, because there are some people that I haven't seen since around that time who had no kids then and now have like 2.
Yeah, well, the same. I've got 2 now, so
of course, yeah, that's right. Yes, it's that's what happens when I had to be in my house for 2 years. I couldn't go out.
Yeah.
Well, we all had to do that, but me being single and living on my own. It seems like the
Let's
rest of
not
the
go
world,
down.
the rest of the world happened whilst I was shut. Anyway, it's not really. Anyway, we've digressed already. Let's start with a little bit about yourself and your where are you from, and what's your history with folk music, or how did you come to folk music, or did you find it, or was it something as part of your natural upbringing?
Oh my goodness. So my discovery of folk music is quite a circular, long-winded route. No, I didn't grow up with it. My understanding of folk music growing up, because my dad's from Northern Ireland, they have an interest in like this horrible kind of country music over there, and that is what I think, or that's what I thought folk music was. So wasn't really aware of anything else. And as a teenager, I was like more into rock music. But I was interested in alternative stuff. And I was just exploring different kinds of musical genres, and I came across bands like the Medieval Babes and stuff like that. Which I don't know if you've ever even heard of them, but they do it's like a choral group who sing a cappella, but like medieval music.
I mean, it sounds great to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're pretty good. I haven't really listened to them much recently, but yeah. And so I was just trying out different things. And now I was wondering whether I should admit to this next bit, because I know people like Steve Roud are really going to frown at me, but I should be honest. So I was in Manchester. I'm from Manchester, and I was in a in a new age bookshop in Manchester, because I've always had an interest in like superstition, folklore, belief, and that kind of thing. And I was in this new age bookshop, New Aeon Books, talking to the proprietor there. I think his name was John, and we're talking about music, and he was like, "Oh, I bet you'd really like Steel Eye Span." So I suppose it's combining my interest in rock music with the kind of alternative history or historical kind of music that I'd been listening to as well. So I literally walked out of that shop, walked down the road to Market Street, and walked into HMV and picked up the best of Steel Eye Span and took it home and listened to it. And
you can't go wrong with the best of Steel Eye Span.
Well, exactly. It was the moment when was it Saucy Sailor Boy came on. That was my very first English folk song that I'd ever heard.
Wow.
Coming on. Ding 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 ding. And honestly, I was like, I've never heard anything like this before. This was amazing. I know, it's some Steel Eye Span stuff can be it can be a bit cheesy, but it's great. I absolutely love it.
Well, I grew up with folk music, as I'm sure you know, and so it wasn't necessarily a gateway for me, but I do have a very, very vague memory of hearing or rather, whenever I hear the little guitar plinky guitar riff that starts the Steel Eye song "One Misty Moisty Morning."
Oh yeah,
that stirs something in the back of my memory that I think I heard that a lot as a kid. That song,
some nostalgia or something. I know, and every day that there is mist outside, I can't help but sing that little song to myself.
How'd you do, and how'd you do, and how'd you do again? Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And why was this man all in leather? I don't know.
Well, but I mean, he was a mod. No, I don't know which one.
Yeah, some biker. I don't know.
Yeah, he was a biker, exactly. Yeah, see.
So, but yeah, so I that was my introduction, and yeah, I was enthralled, I suppose. I'd not heard anything like it, and I wanted to find more. And so it was a very long route to finding more, because it wasn't so easy to find stuff online in those days. you could do a bit of searching, but it was mainly going into record shops and just going to the section labeled folk and seeing what else was there. And so then you're kind of in the hands of those record shops as to what they tell you folk is. So I didn't really know. I was just buying anything and everything. And I was buying some Joanna Newsom, which was labeled folk. There was like Sufjan Stevens, people like this, because at that time, I think we were going through what now people are calling a folk resurgence. So there were bands around who were making music and labeling it as folk, but it's not folk in the way that now I would term it, because they weren't actually performing traditional songs. They were performing music which sounds a bit folky, as in it was played on guitars or banjos or other folky instruments and has a folky vibe, but they were self-penned songs. So there was a lot of that, a lot of searching around, finding stuff that wasn't actually folk music, but spending my hard-earned cash on this stuff and not really knowing what it was going to be, but then occasionally coming across other albums like Legion Leaf from Fairport Convention, and then finding like, oh yeah, that's really good, that's the kind of thing. And it was only later on that I realized, like, well, what is the similarity between the stuff that I like and the stuff that I'm not as interested in? And I realized it was the songs were actually traditional and that they were historical and, had quite a history to them. So it took quite a long time to find traditional folk in that sense. Then in the meantime, I met my partner, now husband, Ted, who we met at university, and we were sort of exchanging music and sort of telling each other about the kinds of music that we liked. So I was, you know what it's like. You give someone a mixtape or whatever, or a mixed CD. That's your introduction to a romantic formula.
I gave someone a mixed CD once. I never heard from them again.
Oh, well, obviously it was the wrong person, Matt. You got to find the right folky for that.
Yes, it wasn't a folky. It was yes. Might have put too much folk music on there, maybe.
Yeah, you got to balance it. You can't go in all guns blazing. It's just going to scare them away. So anyway, so I added a few folk tracks onto this mix CD for Ted, and he was more aware of folk music initially than I'd been, but then he was sort of said, well, I've seen mentioned in on this board outside a pub in Chorlton. It's called The Beach, and it says that they have English folk tune sessions and English sing-arounds. And he said, let's go down and check it out. So we did, and that was like, the first sing-around that we ever attended. The first tune session that we attended was at the beach, and it was led by these three amazing guys. So that was Les Jones, Ken Deeks, and Jed Gaskell. They were just so welcoming, very encouraging, had a great format to the night that was very enabling for people who were not familiar with folk music or folk song. And so, through them, got introduced to more traditional stuff. And that was really where we started to discover revivalists like Frankie Armstrong and Ewan McCall and people like that. And that's even more sort of hardcore folk music to me at that time. We were attending that, becoming more familiar with folk music, and then a job came up at the EFDSS. Hooray! So I should have said that when Ted and I met, I was studying to be a librarian. And there was a job came up to
There's only one job. There's a cross section between folk music and librarians.
Yeah, exactly. So I saw this job come up, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've got to apply for this job." and it was assistant librarian. And
Was Malcolm Taylor still the head librarian then?
yes,
Yeah.
Malcolm interviewed me along with Martin Nail and Elaine Bradker.
Wow. Martin
Yeah,
Nail this is a teaser for much later in the podcast. Martin Nail will be doing the historical side of our 10th episode, our final episode of this season. So it's not the last time we'll hear Martin Nail's name.
yeah, Martin's great.
Amazing.
So yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised when I was offered the job. So yeah, it was amazing adventure moving to London, and then being completely ensconced. I don't know what sort of surrounded by this world of folk music, and sort of having that there at my fingertips. And yeah, it was amazing opportunity and amazing experience.
Yeah, and I think that's when we met. I think you had that job by then. I think by the time we met,
Must have been, yeah, because prior to that, I'd only really been to the sing around and the tune session at the beach, not been anywhere else. And really, it was only when we moved to London that we actually started getting offers of like floor spots, which then turned into doing like half night gigs, which then led on to full gigs. So Ted and I weren't actually performing properly prior to moving to London. So yeah, it was.
But I can't actually pinpoint the moment we met, when or where it was. It seems it's a bit lost to the ether, lost to the mist of time.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It
Probably
might
in
have
C Sharp House.
Yeah, maybe been introduced by someone or at C Sharp House, or you might have been doing a gig I was at a floor spot at, or vice versa, or something.
Yeah, you know what? Probably was like the Sharps Folk Club or something like that, I bet.
Or the Musical Traditions Club, maybe, that Peter Webb and Ken Hall used to run, I think.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, I have a vague memory of, at least, I think we did know each other by then, but my band, the Dovetail Trio, and you and Ted did a double
We did
night.
a split gig, yeah.
We did a split gig at the Musical Traditions Club.
We did.
I've forgotten that until this moment.
We both sang versions of John Barleycorn.
Oh yes, that's right, because everyone has.
I think you ended on it, and then we started our second half with it, or something.
There you go.
Bonkers like that.
Sort of, that's sort of a reverse bookend, isn't it? It's the middle bits rather than the outside bits. Yeah. And so, how long were you working in the library for at C Sharp House? When did that come to an end?
Oh, so I took the job in 2011. Worked with Malcolm for 3 or 4 glorious years. It was a privilege to work with Malcolm Taylor. He was genuinely a very, very nice man. And so that was
absolute legend.
He is a legend. And then when he left, I was fortunate to take his job as the library and archives director. And I really only left after my daughter was born. So yeah, we just decided at that point it was time that we needed to be near family again. So we moved back up north, and that's where we are.
North, which is and you've ended up 45 minutes drive from me as well.
Yeah,
not actually that far apart after all.
I know. We should make more of that opportunity then.
I think we should. This is the first time we've actually spoken in like 6 years.
Yeah,
which is very bad actually. But there was a lot of stuff going on in the intervening years, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was.
For one reason or another. So, Roud 7 for here we are, episode 7.
Lucky 7.
Lucky 7. And what a great song this is too. This is we heard Steve Roud earlier giving us the history of the female highwayman. Do you have a particular memory of when you first sort of came across this song, or you think you might have heard it, or is it just in your folk consciousness?
Well, it's just one of those songs, isn't it, where I was definitely familiar with the Sauvé version. Do, 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 do. But I don't know where I heard it first. I mean, I was listening to bands like Pentangle at the time.
I mean,
So,
as Steve Roud said, basically, Pentangle, they were the people that originated that version. So they,
well, I don't know. I know. I've listened to Martin Carthy's version, A.L. Lloyd's version. So there's a lot of those important like second wave folk revival singers who sang it, and
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
I'm
Martin did it 3 times. He did it solo. He did it with Dave Swarbrick and with Brass Monkey, his band.
right.
And so he did the same version 3 times in different
Yeah,
eras of his life. So chances are you've heard it from him.
exactly. So I think it was one of those songs that's kind of hard to avoid. You're going to come across it somewhere because some important folk singer like Martin Carthy's already done it, and yeah, Pentangle did it, and that was quite an influential version of it. So, and it probably is one of those ones where people probably did sing it at folk clubs, but it didn't really record on my consciousness. It's like I didn't really pay attention to it, I must admit. Wasn't that interested. But that all
Really?
changed.
Uh,
You're
sort of-
thinking, why are you here?
no. Were you not interested in it? I mean, daylight robbery and cross dressing and all
No,
sorts.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, to be honest, I don't think the tune lends itself very much to close listening. I think that was the problem, is like the well-known tune.
Of that Sauvé tune,
Yeah, of the Sauvé tune.
that's almost sort of modal, isn't it? Da da di da da ya da 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 da
Yeah.
da 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 da. Yeah, it's
I don't know.
it's
For
in a
some
major key, but
reason,
it's not like it's a major key, but it's not particularly kind of happy or
yeah, I don't know. I just oh, there was another band as well, that I'd as part of that folk resurgence in like the like late 2010 or whenever it was, 2005 onwards. There was a band or an album came out by James Yorkston and the Big Eyes Family Player, and I think they did it as well. And so I probably heard it from one of those guys first, but as I say, I really didn't pay much attention. And as I say, I personally don't think that tune made me listen to the song. So yeah, I wasn't interested. But that changed.
that changed.
That changed.
When did that change?
So I think Steve mentioned in his first half that he does a folk song in England course at Cecil Sharp House. So when I first started working at Cecil Sharp House, I went along to his evening class that he was running at that time.
I mean, learn from the boss. If we can learn from anyone, learn from the boss.
I know, exactly. So went there, Steve Roud doing his usual talk and showing us clips and playing us clips of these traditional singers, and he played the clips of Mabs and Gordon singing this version of Cecilia. And I think he was trying to say, like, oh, listen to Mabs, how she sings the song. And he was like saying, and isn't this interesting, because you listen to Gordon and his performance style is so different. And he was even saying like the tune was different. Now, since listening again, I think what happened is that actually Mabs forgot the tune, or no, not forgot the tune, but found the key uncomfortable, so switched to key a couple of times. This is my theory.
Well, there are certainly instances in recordings of Gordon, this is Gordon Hall and Mabs Hall, we're talking about Gordon Hall recordings, where he's pitched it too high, and then when he gets to a high bit of the melody, he sings it an octave lower.
Yeah, well, I think that is something. I think that's what is happening when Steve Rowe played the clip of Mabs Hall singing it, and she starts off singing the song, and then suddenly drops down a key or a couple of keys, and then sings like the next half of the verse in a lower key, but then for the second verse, pitches it up again and then drops back again. And then she finally settles, and then you actually hear the tune. And then that's the tune which then Gordon does sing.
But yeah, so you heard the recordings of Mabs and Gordon, which I played in the in the mid-episode section just now.
Yeah.
So.
And as Steve rightly says, he's Gordon is a Marmite singer. You either love him or you hate him, and I can say it was love at first hearing.
Yeah, that was me as well.
Yeah.
Me also.
I think some people are put off by his extended vowels, or he manages to add in extra vowels within every word. But I think that's amazing. But I think what really gets to me is just the sheer power in his voice. You listen to that recording and it sounds like he's on top of a mountain. The reverb that's coming out from that room, he's belting it. He's absolutely belting it, and he's singing it with such passion that there's nothing else you can do but actually just listen. You have to listen. You have to pay attention. And I think that was actually the first time I actually listened to the words of the song and actually heard what it was about.
Wow.
And was like, this is amazing. And straight away I knew I've got to learn this song. And
yes,
that was that.
I was learning various Gordon Hall very, very long ballads at this point, because Cecilia isn't actually one of his epic ballads.
No.
But I sing his, Lord Bateman, called Lord Beckett, and Plains of Waterloo and things.
Oh, Plains of Waterloo is another belter. Absolutely love the tune of that. Is cracking. Yeah,
it really is,
it.
Isn't it?
Yes,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I must have been at one of your gigs early in our friendship, and you introduced Cecilia. I learned from Gordon Hall, and I thought, right, I've got a friend for life here. So, right, we're gonna discuss Gordon Hall later on, and we have several times over the years.
But I must admit, I bow down to your superior knowledge on Gordon Hall, as you being a Sussex boy, no?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm from Sussex, as was he. I can't remember if he was born in Sussex, but he moved around a lot, and then eventually did settle in Sussex, at least. In the house used to belong to Henry Burstow, another singer from Sussex. So he moved into heritage, as it were, in Sussex.
And it just seems appropriate, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, I remember you telling me about an interview that Gordon Hall gave to Vic Smyth. And he was the kind of person who, he learnt the majority of his songs from his mother, but he did learn. He was genuinely a curious person and very interested in traditional songs, so was happy to research and learn them that way as well. But he just, from the interview, that you can read, I think it's online.
That's right. The transcript is online somewhere.
Yeah, and he's just he's for someone who came from a very working class background, and he is so highly intelligent, isn't he? And he comes across, he's so articulate in the way he comes across in that interview, and he's just a very impressive man all around. Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, he was very okay with finding songs in books and learning them, and going back to broadsides. I did start learning a while back a song called "The Ballad of the Babes in the Wood," which is the standard folk song "Babes in the Wood," but with like 20 extra verses. And it turns out that's just verbatim a broadside ballad that's in the Lucy Broadwood collection. Word for word, it's just that.
Right. Wow.
And there's a song. There's a recording of him. There's loads of recordings of Gordon on the Sussex Traditions website and the database for Sussex Traditions. And I found a recording of him singing a ballad called "The Chichester Merchant." And I've never heard of this song before. And I sort of put a thing up on Facebook saying, Yeah, anyone heard of this? And I think I was originally part of a team that were transcribing some of Gordon Hall's songs for the Celtic Traditions website, and someone had said it might even have been Vic Smith just sort of speculated that Gordon might have written it because it was so unlike anything else he sang.
Right.
And he did. We suspect. I was chatting to Brian Peters about this. We do suspect that he wrote things occasionally. There's odd verses here and there in some songs. You think that sounds like he wrote it. And so we
Yeah.
thought maybe Chichester Merchant was his sort of way of writing a long ballad. And I put the thing on Facebook. I placed, anyone heard of this? And I think Vic Smith might have said, "Oh, possibly he wrote that one." And Val My Goodyear, who runs the Lewis Saturday Folk Club, piped up and said, "No, no, no! It's in a book. I'm holding the book in my hand. It's in this book of songs from Sussex." Like, right,
Oh,
there you go.
wow.
Gordon learned it from this book. So
Yeah.
So yeah, Gordon
I
obviously.
mean, he does his parody versions. I'm assuming he wrote those alternate
because you
verses.
sing. I've heard you sing the
Constant
Constant Lovers
Lovers. Yeah,
parody,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
have on occasion sung his Farmer's Boy parody.
hmm
And yeah, no, absolutely, he wrote those extra verses, the parodies of them. They're all available to hear if you look on the internet.
His wonderful talent. He can turn it to comedy as well.
He can. He was a very, very funny man, and a very heavy drinker and a heavy smoker. Those epic ballads are referred to as five faggers or three faggers.
Yeah, I was going to say that's whenever anyone talked to me about Gordon Hall, they'd always tell me about how he used to stand with a cigarette in his hand and then a pint of gin in the other. Now, I don't know whether is that actually true.
What it was, I've been informed, it's a pint glass, 3 measures of gin topped with tonic. So it's a pint of gin and tonic,
It was a gin
not a
and
pint of
tonic.
gin, but it's a pint.
It couldn't be ladylike. It couldn't be in a tumbler. It had to be in a
It's in a
pint
pint glass,
glass.
yeah. 3 measures of gin topped with tonic, but he'd have like one a night. He wasn't like downing 3 or 4 of them.
Right, okay.
But he'd sip that throughout the night. But it was the fags as well, which I realized later on is why there are so many redundant choruses in his songs, is so that
So you could
so that he could have a whiff of the cigarette and a swig of his gin and tonic, which is why there are so many redundant choruses, and I've had to remove some of them when I sing them.
That's such a great strategy, isn't it?
It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And he died in 2000, or was it 2002? But that was like within 5 years of me, or the wrong side of within 5 years of me becoming interested in singing folk songs. And it's one of my sort of regrets that I didn't really get
Missed
interested
that.
in folk
Yeah.
songs early enough. He came to the Royal Oak Folk Club in Lewis a lot, the Vic Smith ran, and so I'm certain that I was in the same room as him quite a few times.
Oh, wow.
But I have no memory of anyone even vaguely resembling that description. But and then 4 or 5 years after he died, that's when I really became interested in folk songs, and that's one of my regrets in life is that I was just on the wrong side of
Don't beat
him,
yourself up about it, Matt.
But he wasn't that old either. He was only in his was he in his 50s or something? Or I can't remember how old he was. He wasn't like, in his 70s, but that was the fags and the gin, the gin and tonics and the
Must have got to him.
yeah. And he was a big fella. He was like 20 stone or something. He's a huge, imposing presence. And yeah, absolutely incredible.
Well, it comes across even in his singing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's,
And then, as Steve was saying, with his mum, Mabs, this tiny little woman,
complete opposite.
complete opposite. And yeah, and so yeah, Gordon had this song Cecilia, which is the female highwayman. So rather than Sauve, which I don't think even Steve Roud earlier on mentioned where the word or the name Sauve actually came from. But it's always interesting, that one. But you got Sauve, and other versions are Sylvia and Priscilla. There's at least one version with Priscilla, I think. But Gordon and Mabs had Cecilia, which is such a grand name, I think, for this context of this version. I think it's really fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, listening to Gordon singing it and, his delivery of it is fantastic. But then because his delivery made me listen to it, then the song itself, when you do listen to it, is fabulous anyway. you know, it was appealing to hear a song where a woman has such agency, that they take it upon themselves to test their lover, and to actually, they're not just a passive character, they're active. And
Absolutely, yeah.
it doesn't happen quite so much. I know there are songs where women cross-dress and they have more agency. But even so, I still think like songs like the Female Cabin Boy or William Taylor or whatever, they're still sort of being a bit wimpy. I don't know. They're following their love, and it's the
I know what you mean.
things.
Yeah.
It's still not quite as proactive, is it? And still,
I guess they're just kind of following their true love, whereas in Female Highwayman, I mean, the aim of the game, at least for her, is to prove his constancy, to prove his love for her. But she does it by, cross-dressing like the Female Cabin Boy, but also by pretending to be a highwayman and doing a bit of sort of evil daring do at the same time, rather than just following the true love.
So she's kind of got balls.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's a bit of action going on. There's a bit of adventure and daring do and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that was what was particularly appealing. I know I have also, there's another song that is a bit like that, which I have learnt, but never got round to recording, and don't know if I ever will, which was The Golden Glove.
Oh yeah.
Which is a similar kind of thing, where it's a lady, she's betrothed to some wealthy man, and instead she ends up falling in love with a farmer. And so she wants to test this farmer to see if he feels the same way. So she cross-dresses as a man and then goes out into the field and then shoots, starts shooting her gun for him to come out and then discover her there. And then she said that she's lost a glove, and then puts out this reward or something like that. So, there's another one where
it's a bit more convoluted, that one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Maybe that's why it's not quite so popular. There's too much going on there, but it's not quite as simple and straightforward. But that's another one where it's got that female agency, which is quite appealing.
Yeah, it's much more interesting, I find, the versions of this proving your true love's loyalty than I do prefer the female-led versions in terms of the character, rather than things like, although the Copper Family song Claudie Banks is brilliant, and that's probably the best example, but all the ones where it's the man who disguises himself.
Well, I don't think he's even disguised himself. It's probably just aged and haggard from being out at sea for 7 years.
There is that. Although in Claudie Banks, the song does say "I being all in disguise," but in other songs there is he's been away so long she doesn't recognize him.
Yeah,
and that's it just seems some of it gets a bit creepy from the male perspective. That one, because I'm just going to pretend that I'm dead, and if she says that she still loves me, then I'll whip off my Groucho Marx glasses and mustache and go, surprise, it's me. I remember seeing an American woman at Whitby Folk Week introduce us that kind of song and saying, I don't agree that they should have been happily ever after. I think I would have decked him.
Yeah. Or when sometimes they say, oh yeah, I did, well, I did see your true love and they were dead. And it's like, oh, now what are you going to do? When they see them crying, then that's when they reveal that, yes, actually it's me.
There's a Scottish one called Willie's Like Wake, and that's that has that. He basically pretends to be dead, and it's when she's weeping and looking on the body in the funeral.
Right. Oh my God, he's taken it to extremes there, hasn't he? He
springs up and says, I'm alive, actually. You've proven your love to me. But yeah, so I'm much the female-led versions of this plot device, I think, are much more interesting, regardless of whether the male ones are creepy or not. The songs tend to be more interesting. Cecilia and the Female Cabin Boy, they tend to be more interesting songs.
definitely. Whether it was wise or not, you may want to question that, but it definitely makes for a more interesting song.
Yeah, yeah. And Cecilia, certainly this version, the Gordon Hall one, it's the language in it is fantastic. The turns of phrase, they're just
Yeah.
amazing. And just even that first verse, Cecilia on one certain day, she dressed herself in man's array with a brace of fine pistols all by her side to meet her true love, to meet her true love, to meet her true love awaited ride. A brace of fine pistols. That's brilliant.
Although I don't sing the word fine, so now you're making me
Not.
feel bad.
Oh no, no,
Yeah.
no! It's fine. I've just copied out what Gordon's saying, but this is the thing. So there are obviously there are some minor discrepancies then between the way the exact words Gordon or Mabs did and what you do. Was that a any deliberate change, or was this just like a
No, I think it's just yeah, when I learn a song, I'll try and listen to it, or if I've got the words written down, I'll do it a few times, and then I then walk away and I try to remember it as best I can. And if I don't remember it exactly, I don't beat myself up over it. I just sing it how it comes. So yeah, I mean, even some of the way that he delivers the chorus, I don't think I phrase it in the same way that he does. Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I'm just singing the melody as I recall him doing it.
minus some of the extra syllables, the extra
Yeah, of course.
vowels?
I can't physically do that. I honestly don't know how to achieve that. I've tried. I don't know what
Some
he's
of it
doing
seems
there.
like he's just putting an extra one of the same syllable on, but putting a W before it and sort of extending it, going. I can't where it is in a song. It's in the Constant Lovers, I think, the one I can remember. The uh, my love's drowned in the sea. We. Sort of. It's like
Yeah.
it's like if you were singing multiple. This is getting a bit nerdy on sort of a singer on singing technique levels. If you're singing multiple different notes for a word that has an O sound, and instead of going oh, you go oh ho 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 ho, which is a slightly bad way of deliberately pronouncing each of the different notes by making
Yeah,
it sound like it's a different syllable of the word, when what you should be doing is getting rid of the H's and going oh, not oh ho 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 ho. And I wonder if that was what Gordon was doing, but it was more of a W, oh whoa 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 sort of thing rather than an H. That's what it sounds like to me.
yeah. It's kind of making me think about like I'm sure there's a type of medieval music where it was considered bad to sing across the tune, like to sing one vowel over multiple notes.
Oh,
And they wouldn't do that. I can't remember the kind of music. You better speak to Julia Bishop about this. I'm sure there is like some kind of medieval music where it's like that. So maybe Gordon was invoking the spirits of a medieval monk and doing some kind of chant. I don't know.
or maybe he was just mad.
He was, yeah,
And he also
in a
had
good
that,
way.
and he also did that springboard off the end of every line as well.
Oh yeah,
That's a
yeah,
Cecilia on one certain day. Yeah, he did that.
yes,
It's
yes.
interesting you listen to that because whenever he sang, there's recordings of him singing in front of an audience, and that technique, that springboard, the yeah thing, is much less pronounced when he's doing it live in front of an audience. But in studio or recording, he recorded loads of his own songs himself for an album called Warts Hall that you can listen to. All the tracks are on Sussy Traditions. He just fancied recording everything he knew, and that's that. Although studio recordings of him, it's much more pronounced, that springboard, that jumping thing. But in front of an audience, it's not as much there.
Well, that's interesting anyway in itself, isn't it? In as how we sing in our homes and the difference between that and performance. Definitely,
Yeah, whether that was a
it's
self-conscious thing
I
for him.
yeah, I sometimes it's subconscious, isn't it? You make a change like that.
or was it deliberate? Was he more meta than we give him credit for? Was he,
Mhm.
did he say was he? And some traditional singers, sang differently when someone shoved a microphone in their face. They felt they had to be a bit better singers than they might have other been. We better put on a bit more of a show because this guy's recording it rather
Mm.
than I'm just singing it for my family. So all sorts of we'll never know is the answer to that. But yeah, Gordon certainly did that all the way through, and I can't remember comparing it Cecilia this version to like the Sauvé and stuff. Whether someone will have heard other versions more recently than me, but this that mentioned. Do you sing the bit about the damask rose?
Yes, the damask rose. It's very poetic.
Yeah, so he did like a bit of poetic stuff, and a damask rose is a real thing. It's not just like a word that or something that's forgotten. Damask rose is actually a type of rose. I can't remember if that's in the Sauvé version or any other
I don't
Sylvia
think so.
versions.
No, I
I
don't
wonder
think it
where
is.
wonder whether that might have been
A garden.
a Gordon Hall sort of embellishment, just
Yes,
a bit to up it a bit.
but I'm sure your listeners will get to well, they will have heard it in all its glory already.
Oh, well, we heard a clip from it. I play clips rather than the
Yes.
full thing.
Oh,
So,
right.
but if you go onto Sussex Traditions on the database, uh, and search for Cecilia or Gordon Hall and go through alphabetically all of Gordon Hall stuff, it's there. And it's also on at least one actual album as well. I think it's the album called Good
Good
Things
things enough.
Enough. That's right.
Yes.
And it's on there. And that's where I got Plains of Waterloo from.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's one of his more flowery tunes. As we said, the tune is glorious for that, but um, it's that's one where we extended several extra notes and syllables in the refrain line because you've got. Oh, I'll sing a verse now. 'Twas the 16th day of June, brave boys, in Flanders where we lay. Our bugles blew, the alarm did sound before the break of day. The British, Belgians, Brunswickers, the Hanoverians too, left Brussels on that Friday morn for the plains of Waterloo. And that bit is like it's just
What
so
it
many
says,
extra notes there.
yeah, he does. Whoa, 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 Waterloo. I really
Yeah.
can't do it, but
Plains of Waterloo. It's yeah,
yeah,
I can't do it. So when I recorded it on an album, I just simplified it to the plains of Waterloo. Just
right.
because I'm me,
Oh no,
because I'm me. I thought there's no point in me
that's
doing that.
disappointing.
Yeah, you know, I'm still keeping the spirit of Gordon alive. I'm just making it a bit more palatable, I suppose, in some ways to the casual listener. But it's all there if you want to hear it. Anyway,
Brilliant.
that's my performance of the Plains of Waterloo. Is there anything else, anything particular you want to talk about with this song? Or are we coming to the end of this? Are there any other
Um,
points that you think you might want to mention?
no, there's nothing specific that I
No,
feel I've missed
that's
relating
fine.
to this version of the song. I mean, to be honest, I'm surprised it's not been recorded more often. Um,
Yeah, considering how amazing it is, that melody
yeah,
is glorious.
I know, and this is why I mean, I do like to sing songs unaccompanied anyway, just because I do think it does convey the story better in some instances, and I've definitely felt that this was one of those where there isn't a way that you can put an arrangement to it to enhance it because it's already amazing.
Yeah, and also it's not in a like a it's very much a free time thing
Exactly.
rather than you almost can't shoehorn this into a time signature. There are some
Yeah.
songs that can do that, but they don't work very well. But you almost can't with this.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you sing it unaccompanied, it allows you that flexibility in your delivery to really emphasize bits of the story, um, to highlight bits and yeah, just sort of bring it home as to what is going on within the narrative. So I didn't think there was any way that I could put an arrangement to it that would do it justice. So and Gordon's performance is so good. I just really wanted to pay homage to that, really.
And is this one, because I know that Ted sings harmonies a lot, is this one that Ted put some harmonies to, or is this one just a you thing, really?
This was just me on we recorded this song for our album, and this was one of the songs, one of the few songs where it's just an unaccompanied. I don't know if I do sing any unaccompanied solo songs. I think this maybe is the only one. When we perform it live, Ted joins in, does a harmony on the refrain. But that's to encourage other people to join in on that refrain as well. But no, on the album it's just me.
Grand. Excellent. So, are there any? We always do a recommendation section of other ones. Are there any particular revival singers, as in non-traditional source singers, versions of? There aren't really any of Cecilia, apart from your one on your album, which we can recommend highly. But are there any, other versions done by sort of modern, in inverted commas, singers that you would like to draw people's attention to?
Yeah, well, we've mentioned some already. We mentioned the pentangle version. I do like, even though it's the alternate tune, the James Yorkston version is. I do think he approaches the song quite sensitively. So even with that other tune, that he does deliver it in a way that would make you listen to the story. So yeah, I think that one. And I know we were just saying that this version of Cecilia that Gordon Hall sang hasn't been recorded much by other people, but a friend of mine, Owen Ralph, did do a version of it. He was doing an album, and it was like combining folk and classical music. So he did it for that. And also, I only just discovered as well that I think Emily Portman did a version of this, but with another band. But I'd never heard it.
Oh, okay. I wonder which band that was.
I think it was called Rubus or something like that.
Oh, that was a band Emily had for a while. Rebus. Sorry, Emily. I can't remember.
Rubus,
yeah, Rubus. Yeah. I remember seeing them live. They were great.
Well, you must have been. They might have sung this version
they may well have done
Cecilia, and maybe that's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are good ones. I'll recommend it's always worth listening to the actual song Sauvé, which is on Martin Carthy's first ever solo album. Back in the 1960s. It's on there, and there's
Was he the first revival singer to do it?
Maybe, I'm not sure whether he did it or whether it was. I don't know. is the simple answer to that. But he also did it with Carthy and with Carthy. He's Carthy. Him and Dave Swarbrick as their duo did it as well, the same version. And later on, when Brass Monkey formed, he did that one as well. Brass Monkey, anyone doesn't know Brass Monkey, that was a really, really phenomenal band. That was Martin Carthy, John Kirkpatrick, and then a trumpet player, a trombone player, and a percussionist. I can't remember the names of the brass players, but Martin Brinsford on percussion and harmonica, and it was just a wonderful idea and a wonderful sound, and very privileged to see them quite a few times live. They're amazing. Again, it's more versions of Sauvé, really. On the very first EP they ever made, the Askew sisters did the same Sauvé, and that's a really nice version. Hazel Askew, who is the main singer in that duo, will be next week's singer guest on the Two Sisters. So keeping it in-house. Jeff Davis, American singer, who is excellent,
Yes.
did a version, Pretty Sylvia, for an album called Song Links 2.
Oh, brilliant.
There was a Song Links 1 as well, obviously. But that's great. Jeff Davis. And I'll bring one more, which is Pete Morton, who's an unexpected choice. Pete Morton is a songwriter, singer-songwriter on the folk scene. I've had the honor of being on his most recent 2 albums. I can't remember when he did this album, but he only does Zone songs or the occasional Pete Seeger thing. But he did do an album called Trespass, I think back in the 1990s. And it's an album of traditional songs. But it's all sung by him on his guitar. And they all come out sounding like Pete Morton songs rather than like traditional songs, which is brilliant. So it's genuinely great that they come out sounding like him rather than like...
It shows he has a very distinctive style.
Yes. And he did a version of Sylvia, which is really, really great. And really nicely handled version. So recommend that lot. And I'll put the links to all those in the episode notes. I think we've exhausted the possibilities of this discussion. This podcast has mentioned Gordon Hall quite a lot, but it was nice to have an extended, a welcome, a sort of legitimate reason to chat about him for quite a while.
Yes. Yeah. And I would encourage anyone who's not heard his albums to go and explore them because they are wonderful.
Yes, or come and see my gigs where I'll regale you with 21 verses of the Ballad of the Babes in the Wood.
Yeah, I think you sent me a recording of Barbara Allen that he did. How long was that? Like 13 minutes?
Oh, no. It's like 21 minutes.
Oh, no.
Or 19, but that's because he sang quite slowly. I have the words written out and I've sung it through at the speed I would feel comfortable singing it at. And it came out at like 12 minutes.
Wow.
You know, it's in the end, compared to how long he sang them, if you sing them at an acceptable pace now, they're not too bad. But they're still like 10 plus minutes. But that Barbara Allen is like 33 verse. Oh no, it's about 24 verse or something. But they are full versions is basically it.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Right then. Thank you so much for doing this. Really, really great to have you on.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
I'm so relieved to hear you say that. Yes, and we're about to hear a recording that you sent to us of you singing Gordon Hall's Cecilia. But for the time being, Laura Smyth, thanks very much.
Bye.
Cecilia, on one certain day, she dressed herself in man's array, with a brace of pistols all by her side, to meet her true love, to meet her true love, to meet her true love, waited right. She met him boldly on the plain. Stand and deliver, she said, young man. Stand and deliver, young man, she said, or else this moment, or else this moment, or else this moment, your life I'll lay. She robbed him of his watch and gold, gave him the empty purse to hold, saying, there's one thing more on your finger now. Deliver it to me, deliver it to me, deliver it, your life to spare. This diamond ring a token was, before I'd lose it, I'd lose my life. She being tender-hearted, more like a dove, she rode away, she rode away, she rode away from her own true love. Now early next morning, plain to be seen, this couple walked on the garden green, when he saw his watch hanging by her clothes, which made him blush, which made him blush, which made him blush like the damask rose. How can you blush at such a thing? More if I'd had your diamond ring, for it was I who robbed you upon the plain. So take your gold, love, so take your gold, love, so take your gold, love, and watch again. Why did you enter such a foolish plot? Suppose your pistols you would have shot, and if you had killed me out on the plain, forever after, forever after, forever after, you'd be brought to shame. I did intend, and 'twas to know whether your love it was true or no. But now I have a contented mind, my love and all, my love and all, my love and all, dear, they are thine. So this couple married were, and they do live a most happy pair, for the bells do ring and the music play, and they have pleasure, and they have pleasure, and they have pleasure both night and day.
That was Laura Smyth singing Gordon Hall's version of Cecilia. That brings us to the end of this episode. What did you think? What are your thoughts on the song in general? And what are your thoughts on Gordon Hall? Are you a lover or a hater? If you're a lover of his singing, I would highly recommend heading over to the database on the Sussex Traditions website and having a scroll through their rather extensive collection of Gordon Hall recordings. Anyway, I promise to make an effort not to mention him too much in the rest of this season. If, for whatever reason, you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to drop me an email at intheroud@singyonder.co.uk or visit the podcast on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Just search for In the Roud, a folk song podcast. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I'd very much appreciate it if you would give us a little like or rating and a review on wherever you get your podcasts from. That really helps the podcast to reach a wider audience. One last huge thanks to this week's guests, Steve Roud and Laura Smyth. Join me next week for episode 8. We'll be looking at Roud 8, which is the ballad The Two Sisters. My historical guest will be Brian Peters, and my singer guest will be Hazel Askew. That's it from me. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you next time in the Roud.